Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Alien Strand Extras, and welcome to today's show. Thank you for being a part of this special show, man. You guys are the ones that are paying for it. So, you guys that have been a subscriber, thank you for that. I know it's like $5 a month, but I really appreciate that. It helps keep everything going, man. And I couldn't do it without you guys. I try to get as much information out as possible on Alien Strand and Alien Strand Extras. So, have you noticed I've been throwing a lot of the audio on here as well for you guys to hear, for everyone to hear, actually, but this podcast today is just for you only, right? And it'll be just for you for a while, and then I might just release it to other people out there later on. But I wanted you guys, get what you pay for. You guys are special to me. Thank you guys for actually paying the subscription that you do. And like I said, I do have a lot of goodies that are becoming soon, and I'm getting everything ready as as we speak. Right? I always try to put everything together. It's slowly coming together, but we're starting to rock and roll, and now that the ball's rolling, we're actually putting everything together as it comes in, right? So our past podcast, CE5 Connection, go check it out. It's here on Patreon, and you'll be able to go back, and I'll show you how to CE5. I kind of put everything kind of together on the different ways of CE5 and how it happens, right? And the best protocols that you can use, maybe for yourself. And I kind of show you some videos. You hear some sounds, some frequencies that you can possibly use for yourself if you decide to do a CE5. Now, Children of Aliens, go check that out. That was a really good one too. I talked about cloning, the bloodline, things like that. People that actually saw their children after they were abducted, and then they only got to see those kids one time, and that was it. But very good podcast on there. That one. Today I did an audio podcast. Okay, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but I did. It was a really good one. I talked about a story that happened in 1984. I hope you guys catch it. It's going to be on audio. It's already here on this platform. Go check it out. It's only an audio version, not like video like here today, but it will actually give you a lot of insights on this story that happened in 1984 and how the bloodlines and kind of things that go back to the sun. And you'll hear the whole story. Also, I got a surprise in there for you guys. I talk a little bit about Madonna, right? Well, I'm not going to say anything. But you guys check that out. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it as much as I did. All right. So tonight's podcast, I'll be talking about communication and the feathers of life, and how the natives, how they were able to communicate, and the thought process of maybe we can kind of communicate with each other with this feather. And people didn't know exactly why they had this feather up on their sort of like a leather strap around their heads, right? They always just thought that was just the way the natives looked, or whatever, that was their look. But not really, man. I mean, even the Aztecs did it. The All the different natives all over the world at the time, and still even today, they still put the actual feather up in the head, right? So, and I'm going to explain that and how that works tonight, so you guys can kind of get a better logistic of it, right? Of what exactly it is, right? So, if you haven't seen it yet, catch up to my book. It's on Kindle right now. It's CE5, Frequencies of Contact. Go check that out. Download it. Pretty easy read. It'll take you about a couple of hours to read it. It's a great handbook to keep in your pocket or in your car if you want to go CE5. You kind of reference back and forth. It kind of helps you understand CE5 and what it is, right? And it breaks everything down for you in definitions and the protocols and how to actually do a CE5. And then I break down what a CE1 and all the way through CE5, and the whole definition of what they mean. Sometimes you need to have that in your hand, because you need to reference that back. Every once in a while, when you're listening to different podcasts, not just this one, and you get to understand exactly what's going on. Don't forget the military trilogy. This is going to be coming out. I already have part 2 out on Amazon Prime. I already uploaded. We're waiting on the AOK. As soon as it comes out, I'll let you guys know. And then right after that, part 3 is coming out. It's because it's already a done deal. All right. You can actually watch it on Vimeo on our Skylight One channel. The middle part 2, you can see it there, right? So if you guys want to go back, go check it out. Or even if you got a subscription to there, it's only like $3.99. You get a subscription and you can watch all the movies when they come out. and you just pay that one price, $3.99. You don't have to pay the extra just to watch the movie again or anything. You already have the subscription, right? So you can watch anything that comes out on that channel. Great channel to have, right? Like I said, it's coming out on Prime. Check that out pretty soon, as soon as it comes out. Don't forget, we ASTP, we all work together, and there's no I in team. You know, if you need anything like that, need some help, give us a call. We all work together, all right? So today's podcast, I want to do something. I usually don't do this right away, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this video of this gentleman. I only was able to catch maybe half of it, and he explains in the very beginning. They're asking him questions. This has happened in 1996. They recorded him talking about the Earth's crust, the universe, how everything kind of connects together, and how um, the the complex, how they lie to us and tell us different things, industrial complex, and they kind of just don't tell you the truth exactly what's happening. He told us in 1996 exactly what was going to happen, right? And it does happen right today, what we're seeing unfold now, right? And he had already pre-warned us, but nobody's ever seen this video. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but I'm going to show this video first, so that way we can kind of dive into exactly what we're looking at, and how this all kind of manifests together, and maybe this is a sort of correlation, how everything kind of works together in a frequency, right? And everything I do it for a reason, right? And that's why I brought this podcast together, because there's a reason for my madness, right? I want to make sure that you guys understand what frequencies are, how everything kind of connects together, and this is a great video, so you can check this out, and after this we'll start diving in. Here we go.
3 levels deep, and the pyramid was built over it. Okay, that's where the real juice is. That's where the real knowledge is. The Sphinx will have some things, but it's a distraction. You know, these guys are real good at what they do, at diverting attention from reality, from truth. They're excellent at it. If they put that much energy into telling the truth, God, we'd all be out of here. You know? Okay, hold on one sec. I don't have it somewhere. Okay, things that are going to happen in the next 10 years. Number one, we're going to truly find out who we are genetically. Information will be coming from all corners of the earth from contactees. There will be more and more contacts, and they will tell us about the 22 different races and more of our history. There will also be massive earth changes. They will start with a magnetic pole shift, which could happen anytime between now and the year 2001. Things have been sped up. We're already starting to see the magnetic poles shift as we see birds migrate in the wrong direction at the wrong times of year. The birds move along the Earth's magnetic grid lines. And I wanted to share something with you. I'm very fascinated with the Native Americans. And I love to collect feathers when I find them on my journeys and my vision quests. And I was given this on 3/19 of 94, and I just want to share this with you. It's primarily about the Native Americans and the original intent behind them wearing the feather. In the ancient way, your native red American races understood the nature of the birds. The birds are very sensitive to magnetic fields and microwave energy, as you call it. They will migrate along the Earth energy grids, and their wings, which are made up primarily of feathers, were to be watched as they were very sensitive. To watch and follow the birds is to know which way the Earth's magnetic flows are moving. They would also, the Native American races, camp off these magnetic flows because the radiation would become harmful in time. The feathers are very sensitive to energy fields and magnetic fields. They are, in fact, an antenna. The feather would attract telepathic communication with all the tribe. As the chief would think or quietly discuss plans, The rest of the tribe would, in the ancient days, receive the message.
He said, receive the message, right? So, and how did they know that that was working, right? So they had to have tested it out, right? Back in the day, right? No phones, nothing like that. They're talking the ancient native ways, right? Where they were using the hairdress, right? The actual feather in the hairdress, because they knew the birds were migrating different with a different pole shifts, right? Electronic magnetic uh, 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 fields, the grid lines, because we have a lot of different grids on the Earth, Earth's properties that make these birds shift into different directions, right? So they knew that the birds had something to do with um, where they migrate, and maybe they were connected to what they always call Mother Earth, right? They always say Mother Earth because that's exactly what they knew that the Earth is alive, right? That's why they call it Mother, because it was the birth. It birthed everything, right? That's what they believed in, right? So it was the beginning of life, which is Earth, right? That's why they call it the Mother, right? And because it makes everything, right? You kind of think about it, that's exactly what it is really in reality. If you really think about it, it kind of it keeps going and makes itself. But as you can see that the poles, what he talked about in 1996, that there was going to be a pole shift. Now there has already happened, I believe a year and a half ago, that this pole shift happened, right? That they said that it shifted already, and which is kind of making our electronic magnetic fields on the Earth's rotation a little bit different, right? And how do we explain these shifts as we talk about them on a daily basis, right? The Earth does have a frequency, right? It really does. It has a frequency that resonates around the Earth, right? And it kind of keeps everything. I'm just gonna, in retrospect, it's gonna keep everything kind of lined up, right? Of what we're used to seeing um, on migration of birds, things like that, right? So, and I'm just kind of frosting the top of the drink here because what I'm trying to explain to you exactly what the magnetic fields are on the Earth's crust and the Earth's rotation, right? So, and there's an article, and it says um, that, and it talks about the ionosphere, the Earth's ionosphere, right, and frequencies, and created by thunderstorms and lightning, and it ranges between 7.83 hertz, right, 7.83 hertz, and it says Earth's heartbeat is from there to 33.8 hertz, right, um, and what this article is saying is that according to NASA, that our thunderstorms, about 2,000 thunderstorms, that it says our planet in every moment, that the Schumer resonances can be found in the waves that go about 60 miles above our lower ionosphere as a part of our atmosphere, right? They say that thanks to electric conductivity and the ionosphere, the features charged ions separated from neutral gas atoms in the area of solar radiation, right? And it kind of it kind of explains the engineering of the ionosphere and the electromagnetic waves that kind of flow with the Earth, right? And that's basically what it's telling you is it creates its own waves, right? Because that's how our polar, it kind of shifts around in a circle, right? And the birds actually kind of follow that, right? And and they've been measuring this since the 1950s. In the 1960s, they said the waves were about lower there, about 7.83 hertz, and it can get lower than that. And they've already called it the Earth's heartbeat, and they've tried to use harmonic and everything, just try to measure the actual resonance of the Earth. So the Earth does have a frequency, right? And it is around our ionosphere. And but it says that radiation does do play a role in that as well. And they say that lightning hotspots in Asia, Africa, or South America, whose storms are seasonal, are affected by whether it's night or day, and also influence the strength of the resonance. Right. So this is exactly what happens. Right. Those storms kind of shift because they have so many more over there, and it kind of makes it different. Right. It kind of intensifies the measurement of our frequency. So basically, it's just telling you that the Schumann resonance is about 7.83 hertz, right? And it even says it's been linked to hypnosis, meditation, or even human growth hormones. But the less scientific evidence of those kind of connect at this point, right? So it's pretty much telling you that it uh does connect in these frequencies, right? And I talked about the solar flares before, how uh they actually caused a sort of a shift, or a block of some sort, right, to the earth, the electronic magnetic field, right? And I was talking about meditation and going into different dimensions, right, when I was talking about the C5, and I brought this up, right? So why not it affect the actual gravitational electronic magnetic fields of the earth? And it is, we already know that. But and it makes the birds go into different directions. Sometimes you see these birds go crazy all over the place, right? We always see them flying in different formations, right? They're always in these formations when they're migrating. And as we know that they're really just trying to get to the point of destination, right? And the natives, what I'm trying to get at here, is the natives were noticing all these migration points, which directions they were going at the time, right? Now you got to remember, after that, our poles are shifted, right? So now the ionosphere, the electronic magnetic fields, are kind of moving in a sort of like a wave, right? And then when it does that, it just kind of throws the birds into a different kind of migration. Sometimes you see them in this place, see them in a different place. They're just following their actual their feathers, right? Their feathers actually have a frequency, if you did not know this. So and and it shows right here, I'm going to show you a little graph that the feathers, they can actually measure the frequencies, right? If you look at the very bottom of the right, on the Q, on feather Q, it says it's 7.147 hertz. That's right, right there where the Earth's um, hertz is as well, right? Where it resonates together. So if you really think about that, the it does make sense, right? That the feathers do take a part of a frequency change, right? And when he was talking about the chief, that they use these feathers to kind of as an antenna to talk to each other kind of telepathically, right? And to receive messages and back and forth, because it's resonating as close as it can to the frequencies of Earth, if you think about it, right? And I'm talking some deep stuff here, right? So it might sound crazy to some, but if you really, really think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? So, you know, and how is it that they measure these frequencies, right? Um, and there's a way to do to measure a frequency of an actual feather. They use these meters to try to get the it's called a micro manipulator. That's what they use. So it says they mount one of these micro manipulators on the sensor of the head, and it should be perpendicular to the plane of the stimulation. So I'm talking about the feather. So they're actually measuring the feather. They measure the crest of the feather's motion. They use high speed video to track the crest of the actual vortex as it hits this feather in this meter, right? And this is how and it says they measure the feather's free response and use a shaker to stimulate the feathers and to record the response, right? So in other words, what they're telling you here is that yes, it is possible to measure the feathers and the frequencies, and that's how they were able to come up with these graphs. Hello, they're able to do this, right? And because they wanted to make sure that what these birds were doing, and then they were tracking birds back in the day. When we first started actually, kind of studying these migration of birds. And yeah, why not measure? If somebody had the idea of measuring the feather, right? Does it have a frequency? How is it that they follow this path, right? That they always go through, and we always try to wonder the path and how they got this path, right? Well, it was because of the frequencies. It was because of Earth's frequencies how they got this path, right? And there's just another graph showing you the hertz again, 7.83. That's on the fundamental layer, and then we have the second order layer. It's at 14.1, and then we have the green layer. If you see the green layer around it, that's at 23 hertz, 20.3 hertz. So if you notice, there's different frequencies that flow around the Earth's magnetic fields, right? And the crust, because of the pole shifts, actually make it do this, right? And if you look at it at one of these little graphs on the right side, it's kind of that the frequency is electronic magnetic radiation for the communication of the interference of sensitive it's the systems to for wildlife. In other words, it's kind of just telling that the wildlife uses that for migration, right? And it affects animals, it affects everything, right? And why not, right? And they were able to figure that out, how the natives weren't wrong, right? They're not wrong. Exactly what they were saying was actually happening, right? And they didn't use no meters or anything like that. They were already communicating back and forth with each other, right? Telepathically. And this is what the elders were saying, how they were able to say, hey, we're going to be over here, this battle or wherever, and use that feather to communicate, right? And they knew where the other person was going to be. Did it work? I don't know. And it might have, because they talk about it, right? And if you can communicate in that kind of frequency, why can't you not communicate with other frequencies as far as extraterrestrial, right? So let's, the communication of the natives and the extraterrestrials, it's a possibility that that it was there, the frequency was there, and there was already resonating within their feathers and their head, right? And they were, they would chant and everything like that, and maybe with those beat drums, the low beat, because if you heard the frequencies at 40 hertz, it's like a sounds like a low hum, right? And that may have attracted the extraterrestrials to them back in the day, right? Uh, this was their actual phone call, right? Or not knowing that what they were doing, they might have just did it by accident, right? Or was it an accident? Or did they know that they were talking to these celestial beings, which were, although I think the Hopi called them the star people, right? And they had to have had some kind of uh, meeting, or maybe face to face with these extraterrestrial beings, because they already knew how the Earth worked. They already knew how the birds flew. They already knew that they were migrating because the electronic magnetic fields through the feathers, and they used the feathers, right, as an antenna on their heads, right? So, I mean, and who thinks of that, right? And in those days of communicating, they didn't have everything that we have today. So it was very basic, very, even before the Spaniards set foot here in the states, that, or even the Vikings, maybe way back then, that the communication and the thought process was totally different than it is today. So how are they able to do that, right? And using the migration of the birds and the feathers, right? And we always thought about, well, how is it that these birds are doing that, right? And you know, there was actually another article on the way the birds were using the electronic magnetic fields, and this is a possible way as well. So I'm going to read this to you real quick. It's called the Earth magnetic field plays a vital role in everything from the animal migration to protecting the Earth's sun and solar winds. Now, it says, finally, it sheds light on how some birds visually see the Earth's magnetic field. Birds use electronic magnetic fields as a sort of a heads up display to help them navigate through the globe. In other words, they have a sensory, which they just found out that we're able to know that some of these, not every bird, just some of these birds do are able to do this, right? So this says that the Earth's magnetic field, the movement of the liquid iron and the outer core as the liquid and metal and the outer core moves, it generates electronic currents, right? We already know that, which lead into the magnetic field. The movement of the liquid metal through magnetic field creates a stronger electronic occurrence. Thus, you have a stronger magnetic field, right? So it's called a positive feedback loop, right? And what's happening within the Earth's crust. So and this is why we talked about before the solar flares and the we're going to affect the Earth's crust, because they were just kind of scared that there was going to be some kind of earthquakes, things like that, which it did happen before and a little bit after. So this says that the that birds, they know exactly where to go, right? They visualize a magnetic field, and have discovered that there's bird in Germany has the ability to result on special proteins in the bird's eyes. So it's like two papers they studied in the European of zebra finches, right? And they found the evidence that the eye protein called CRY4, like cry4, right? The cry4 protein is a part of the cryptochrome that is sensitive to cryptochromes, right? And it's found in both plant and animals, possible to see hydrogen rhythms and various species, right? So these birds have this ability to see the electronic magnetic field, right? With this CRY4, right? And they're able to navigate themselves. These finches are tiny little birds, and they're able to navigate themselves across the globe through this, process. They notice with these birds, right? So yeah, maybe it is possible that they're able to do that, and see the Earth's magnetic field, right? This was how they were able to do it back then, and this is how the natives studied them and were able to kind of put two and two together, and they made what they did, right? And did they, have ET contact? They started doing petroglyphs like in Australia. These are some Australian petroglyphs, and they possibly did, right? Had some kind of contact with ETs of some sort because they drew pictures of them, right? And they were kind of glowing in a sense, right, on these photos. So they knew that they were making some kind of a connection with these extraterrestrials, and the way they were doing it was through these feathers and through these frequencies. This is my hypothesis, right? This is a possibility too. There's different ways of doing this, but, and I'm talking like old school, right? Here. So before we had telephones, before we had electric wires, before we had any of that, this is their telephone. And I talked about this in one of my past podcasts. So, how we're the ones that make the call. It's not a phone, but it's a mental and a frequency sort of phone. These guys were actually making this phone call with the feather on their head. Was it possibly were they doing this? Hey, I think that maybe they were, right? They were actually touching base with the extraterrestrials with their the feather on their head, because everything, the science is pointing to it, right? I'm just giving you the science behind it, right? I just said I'm full of crap, but I'm telling you what the science is telling you, right? And then when you put the two and two together and you connect the puzzle, you're kind of saying, "Hey, wait a minute here. Maybe we're onto something," right? And this is what I thought about today after I showed you that video earlier, right? About how the extraterrestrials were possibly making contact with the natives back way back then, before time, right? Even way before time. It's a possibility that this was happening, and they already knew about it, right? The contact, these ETs were emitting and they were receiving frequencies, right, from these possibly chance. Maybe the electronic magnetic fields were stronger that day. The feather that they were wearing on their head was actually making the actual frequency as well, right? The Hopi people, maybe they're the ones. Maybe the feather that they were using, because if you notice that graph earlier that I showed you, different feathers were making different frequencies, right? So maybe you had the right feather and you hit the right channel, right? It's like the CB radios. If you were on the right channel, you can talk to each other. That's exactly the same concept what we're talking about here, right? And maybe this is exactly what they did, and they drew pictures of them. They scribed them on the walls of petroglyphs, and then they also had geoglyphs, right? Of all the received contact they did, because they didn't know how to explain this, or they could explain it to each other and tell stories while it was passed down through the generations, and tell the stories of the star people, right, or something of that, right? And what if that they made contact by using the feather, electronic magnetic field? Use it as a sort of a phone call, a walkie-talkie, right? Of a frequency. We were using radio waves. We still use radio waves today, but only we're mainly using a digital signal now through a, of course, your Wi-Fi, but it's a digital signal wave. It's not an analog wave. We were using analog waves. Analog waves, to me, go a lot further than the digital signal. So this is how, if you kind of think about it like a woo, 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 right? This is how they invented radar back in the day. So they were able to receive and send signals back and forth when they knew something was in the area. And I'm talking about the radars. So why not? The same thing happened with the natives, to where they understand. Uh, Maybe they were calling these extraterrestrials, and we didn't. They didn't know exactly what they were doing at the time, but these people came from the sky, thus star people, right? And like I talked about earlier, the meetings. Maybe they had meetings before, predated periods of BCE. This is way before Christ. I'm talking before Noah, before all those stories of the Bible, everything you can think of. This was way millions, maybe millions of years before that, because they've already started finding teeth. I just saw it today. They found teeth of a 9 million-year-old person, right? It was a human tooth, which means these people were around a long time ago, right? Early human periods, right? You know, Homo sapiens, right? Homo sapiens, and Homo erectus. We were already walking the earth back in the day, and you know, something happened. We had made changes, right? And maybe these people made contact with these extraterrestrials. And if they did back in the BCE periods, probably didn't understand very much, right? So it was kind of like talking to a newborn baby, to try to communicate with them. Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. I don't know if the intellect was there, in those predated times, because there was a time where we had a smaller skull, but and then there was a time when we had a large brain, very large brain, right? And we were able to be a little bit smarter. So maybe that at that time we changed, right? And our thinking process has changed as we evolved, uh, through human history, right? And I'm not saying that, whatever you believe in, it's fine. But I'm just trying to say that this brings you back, and it predates a lot of things way before that time, and it still is it could be a part of that as well, right? It's the evolution of everything, right? I believe it's just one creation of everything, because what I talked about in my podcast earlier, that the extraterrestrials, who they are, right? And what they are is, they have two eyes, right? A nose, a mouth, a small ears, two hands, two arms, a torso, legs, feet. So they're almost humanistic, right? And they don't have two heads, four arms, four legs, things like that. So that's only in the movies, man. You're seeing that kind of stuff. But as far as the extraterrestrials and what people go through, they don't see anything like that. So these things are more humanistic than anything else, right? Which means it's a creation that we're all connected, right? We're all connected in that sort of image, right? Kind of think about that for a minute. I don't have to go any further on that one. You already know where I'm going. So anyway, the frequencies of how these things connect sometimes is sort of strange. How now today that a lot of people that witness extraterrestrial craft, and we try to grab the data as it comes in, and a lot of times you don't get to grab the data, right? And the strange thing, there's this gentleman, I don't know if you guys have him on your Facebook. His name is Juanito Juan. I highly suggest you look for his Facebook. This guy is in close contact with these extraterrestrials on a daily basis, right? I'm going to show you this video that he shot like maybe 3 4 days ago, and then I'm going to show you some pictures that's going to coincide with it as well. So let's watch this video. It's in Spanish, and you pretty much get the logistics of what's going on. But let me show this real quick so you guys can see this. Very strange indeed. But watch this.
Videos, vean, estoy afuera de mi casa y vean, vean, hay un objeto ahí, vean, es una luz, vean eso, mi gente, vean eso, es una luz que está parpadeando, vean eso, es increíble, mi gente, está justo arriba de mi casa, vean eso, increíble, vean, vean. Es a un lado de mi casa, vean, allá está, vean, vean, está flotando, vean eso, mi gente. Para la gente que dicen que no hay videos de lo que está pasando aquí, vean eso. Vean eso. Vean eso, mi gente. Son dos. Vean eso. Increíble, mi gente.
You want to know how
The strange thing about that one is that you know it was moving in different positions. It just wasn't. It's not a lamppost, right? And the reason I'm telling you it's not a lamppost because I'm going to show you the next day, right? Because that was that night, right? So the next day he wakes up and he sees that thing floating there again, but in the daytime, right? And this thing is like standing still. It's a sphere. This is the same sphere that goes into his house, goes around his property at night, right? And it's just floating there, right? So what he does is he gets his thermometer, and because he wanted to take some data of it, right? And he shoots his thermometer. It's just a tiny laser, and it shoots it at the craft, and he's telling you that the temperature of the craft is colder than the air temperature, right? So what we think that these crafts are because they produce these electronic magnetic fields, that it is not hot, even when it was glowing. It's not hot. It's at a cool state, right? And that's what they talked about in the gimbal UFO. If you remember that the one that they showed last year, of the gimbal when it was actually doing the flips and going like this, and they were tracking it. Well, it had a cold spot. It was cold around it, right? And that's what they had broke down, that craft, whatever it was not putting out any heat. So here's the data right here that he's telling you that this craft is not producing any heat as well, right? And I brought this out at the very end of this podcast because I want you guys to understand that we're getting closer and closer to knowing how these crafts work and how they react and how they're starting to interact with people, right? I did a podcast a little while ago live on our Facebook. So if you go back, go check it out tonight. And if you haven't seen it, go back and check it out. I show some incredible videos of that, of different things that were happening on two different videos, right? Because we're trying to put the stories together. But as far as the frequencies of tonight, when we talked about the frequencies, I believe that there's a lot of with the of the natives and how they possibly had it right, right? had it right, with communication, right, and communicating with these extraterrestrials, using the feathers on their heads, communicating with each other. It was just something that they said. It was never tested like with us with our science, as far as if you can telepathically communicate with each other. No, maybe they did. Maybe they were able to achieve it somehow, right? And there's a different way of doing it. We talked about the Earth's frequencies, right, and how the feathers and the frequencies, how they're similar. Some of these feathers are similar to the Earth's magnetic fields, and it has the same frequency, right, same sound frequency as well. So, and how birds migrate in directions of these electronic magnetic fields, which gives us the nail in the coffin of the extraterrestrials and how the electronic magnetic fields and the natives had it right, right? Because they did have it right. I think they did have it right on knowing exactly what these birds and what the feather actually meant on their head, right? We always thought of it as just a look, but if you really think about it, by looking at it, and now that I just explained this to you, it goes a little deeper than that, right? And that's what makes this podcast so interesting, right? That how I had to put this together for you guys to understand exactly what you're saying, as far as the and putting two and two together, like I just did for you just now. And believe me, I'm learning just like you are right now. So and I'm glad that you guys are able to catch up to here to this Alien Strand podcast extras, and I appreciate you guys for being a part of the actual paid subscribers, because as paid subscribers, you guys help me out here, and it helps get out this information to more people as well. It's only a few, you guys, it's not very many, but it's okay to me. It's fine. Everything helps, and I appreciate everything you guys did do for me, and to do for the Alien Strand and the podcast, and just to keep the information flowing. Don't forget, catch my book on Amazon Kindle. I'll have a link to it on here, and if not, you'll just follow all my links. I'll be throwing it out on my podcast everywhere else. It's called All My Links. You'll see it on the audio podcast, and it'll take you right to the books and even the paperback. It's on Barnes and Noble. Go check out there. Tell me what you guys think. Send me uh, a review on it if you guys want to. I really appreciate it, and it helps get the narrative out there for Alien Strand, and helps other people get to understand what we're trying to do here with Alien Strand Extras and Alien Strand Disclosure Project. All right. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening, and have yourselves a good night.